This is CBC Here and Now.
Another cool down on the way. The temperatures improve as we get to the weekend, but it's going to be wet.
At that point, there's just no longer any reasonable chance of survival for anybody at sea.
Searching since Sunday.
Crews call down the search for two missing men in the Bay of Exploits.
We're somewhere at the age of the system. I work with it all the time. It's MS-DOS based. It is problematic.
The program at the center of the largest cyber attack in the province's history is a lot older than you think.
Meditech rolled out in the 1980s.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We begin tonight with the search for those two men. Both are from Gander. The Canadian Coast Guard is preparing to end its search for the two missing hunters in the Bay of Exploits. Crews began the search on Sunday night. Here and Now's Garrett Barry joins us live from Gander. So Garrett, what changed?
Well, Carolyn, Canadian Coast Guard officials tell us that as of right now, there's no longer a reasonable chance that these two missing hunters will be found alive in the Bay of Exploits. So tonight they will end their active search and rescue mission. They will transfer the file over to the RCMP, who will be in a position to start a missing persons investigation. The two hunters that have gone missing are believed to have gone into the Bay of Exploits on Saturday near noon to go tur hunting, and there have not been any sightings of the two men since Saturday. Search and rescue crews worked for the past 48 hours with helicopters, boats, and land search and rescue teams. Officials now say that considering the time that has passed and what they know, it's not reasonable to expect that the men could have survived.
With the clothes that they had on at the time, with the weather that we have on scene, and we use that to determine how long someone could have lived in the water. That's a big factor in what we do. The other side is how well have we searched the area, and we've done a really good job of searching the islands and any possible cabins and places that they could have gone. And once we kind of eliminate those possibilities and we pass the survivability time, it's not an option for us to keep going. We need to transfer this to the RCMP.
Police tell us that the two men are from Gander, but it's believed they left from Lawrence Harbor on Saturday. Yesterday, search and rescue crews found their 14-foot boat overturned in the water north of Black Island. They also found some personal belongings of the two men, and that's where that search continued in that area today. The Coast Guard is expecting to hand the file over to the RCMP at some point in the 6 o'clock hour. Gold says they will continue to cooperate with the police as the police launch their own investigation. He also sends some condolences to the families of the two men involved in this case. The two missing hunters are 30 and 20 years old. Reporting live for Here Now, I'm Garrett Barry in Gander.
Well, temperatures today, especially in the morning, reaching the double digits for the majority of eastern Newfoundland as well as along the southern areas as well. Marystown reached 11 degrees today, and then Stephenville was a similar temperature in and around 10 degrees. Those temperatures much cooler though up across Labrador, Lab City at -3 today and 1 in Cartwright. Those temperatures though hovering mainly as you can see in St. John's, anywhere from 9 to 10 degrees, peaked at about noon this afternoon. Those temperatures now have dropped, and we're going to continue to see that drop as we head through the evening hours tonight. Area of low pressure moving further north. We're going to see those winds shift with this as it continues to track a little bit further north as well. But really the winds with this one is what we've been talking about. Those wind gusts topping out between 70 and almost 90 kilometers per hour. Those winds are starting to die down now, and they'll continue to do so as we head through the evening hours tonight, with those wind warnings likely ending on the west coast. But we do still have some snow on the way for parts of Labrador. I'll get into all those details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the opposition is raising questions about the Meditech computer system Newfoundland and Labrador has been using for 4 decades to hold the province's vital medical information. But government leaders say there's no evidence that problems with the system are at the root of the cyber attack. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports.
It was the opposition's first topic today in the House of Assembly. We understand that the system is nearly 40 years old. Has government been warned by Meditech that the software used by government is no longer being supported?
Outside the House, the PC leader took it a step further and said his party is certain the government was warned before the attack that Meditech is a problem.
You know, we know that, and we know it's an old system, and we know it was put in play, years ago when cyber attacks and that weren't at the level they are now. So it's time that we face reality, and I think we face it this last 3 weeks when we now know what impact it can have.
The Premier acknowledged the technology he's worked with as a surgeon is troublesome.
It is problematic. As the member opposite would know and the leader of the opposition would know, they looked at updating this system back when he was in government. It has been a problem. We recognize it, but we'll look. This is a great time for us to reflect on this system and see if it's the one that we want to go forward with.
The province's Justice Minister was pressed further on Meditech and its security. He said the government doesn't have reason to believe Meditech left the health system vulnerable to hackers.
The investigation is ongoing. Just like we had no evidence to date that there's been any misuse of information, we don't have any evidence to date that the age of the system has anything to do with the attack.
Today was likely the opposition's last opportunity to ask the government questions in the House of Assembly this year. Late this afternoon, Lieutenant Governor Judy Foote gave royal assent to legislation and ended this fall's session in the House. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, after 2 weeks of dealing with mostly urgent or emergent cases, more regular healthcare services are now resuming as the system is rebuilt after the cyber attack. Now, in most cases, Eastern Health says it will be contacting patients to confirm appointments are going ahead. Regular surgery services are back, so are cancer care services, children and women's health services, cardiac and critical care services, as well as endoscopy. The only service listed that is still only for emergencies is echocardiograms. Eastern Health has posted more details on its website.
Renowned environmentalist David Suzuki says it's time to take climate science seriously, and he feels our Premier's plan to keep producing oil does not. Andrew Furey recently returned from the COP26 climate conference and says an abrupt end in oil production would hurt many people. He argues the province should continue producing so-called clean oil for years to come. But Suzuki strongly disagrees.
The reality is that oil has got to be left in the ground. I'm really sorry about that, but that's the reality. It's not me saying that. The scientists are telling us that. Do we take the science seriously or not?
Now, Suzuki says after the COP26 meetings, global emissions continue to climb, and Furey's plan to keep producing oil will only result in a warmer planet. So what should be done? We'll hear more from David Suzuki in about 20 minutes on Here and Now.
Mi'kmaq in the Qalipu First Nation Band want to play a larger part in the province's tourism sector. And to do that, they've partnered with the Deer Lake International Airport and the town on a project called Sense of Arrival. That launched today, and Here Now's Colleen Connors has that story.
Keith Cormier plays and sings a welcome song to start off the event. To recognize that Deer Lake is one of the 67 communities with Qalipu members in this province. Welcome is certainly the theme here today.
It's really important for us to make sure that when, tourists or visitors are arriving in Deer Lake Regional Airport, that they right away get a sense of where they are.
The airport and the band have partnered on an Indigenous tourism initiative. There will be an installation of Mi'kmaq art pieces at arrivals, a marketing campaign within the airport for Indigenous tourism opportunities, and the development of a trail on Airport Authority land that will connect walkers with the history and traditions of the area.
Well, there will be interpretation boards and information for people that are, walking along to explain, what the culture is, what medicinal purpose may be of certain plants, and what Indigenous people would use, those plants for.
It's a $65,000 project funded by the provincial and federal government that Qalipu say will enhance their culture and impact on the area.
And Deer Lake Airport would rival Port aux Basques with the number of people that come to our territory. So having it recognized here in this airport is significant because a couple 100,000 people a year are going to see our presence in this building as they enter our territory.
RFPs for the Mi'kmaq art installations are in the works, and construction on the walking trail starts this spring. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Deer Lake.
Well, more than 150 Afghans have arrived in the province, and they're settling into their new lives as Canadians.
And today we met some of those Afghan families. The Premier was also there at the Association for New Canadians to welcome the newcomers.
Now, many of these people were in very real danger back in Afghanistan and fled from the Taliban. We're protecting the identity of one woman that we spoke with.
Well, today was an opportunity for many of the newly arrived Afghan families to come out. They're out of isolation, so it's an opportunity to go through our donation center and to pick up some household items. And they were also warmly welcomed by the Premier of the province and, of course, Minister Jerry Byrne. I think many of the people are really so very happy to know that they're so welcomed in this province. I would say this is really impactful for the people that were here this morning, and you heard many of them talk about their lives and trying to get settled. So to be welcomed by some of our highest officials is really quite a wonderful thing.
Welcome to Canada, welcome to Newfoundland and Labrador, and welcome to what we hope will be your new home.
I came here with my mother, father, my siblings, and my grandmother. That's it. When we were coming here, we didn't know exactly where in Canada we're going. We knew that we're going to Canada, but we were not sure exactly where. And when we came here, we felt very safe and comfortable and at peace. We were told that we get to live here and that we get to start a new life here, and that's exactly what we're looking forward to start a new life and be safe.
My role has been, I've been overseeing the hotel that the clients are staying in and helping them transition from their first day until they're moved into their permanent accommodations. Morale has been really positive, and they just can't wait to get on with their lives and start their lives here in St. John's and be part of the community as soon as possible.
It's amazing to have, every day, and even in about 10 minutes, I'm going to speak to someone else who wants to help. People are just reaching out to offer financial donations, in-kind donations, lots of volunteers coming forward who set up this donation center. And I think as we hear more about private sponsorship and how that's going to roll out, what the numbers are going to be, we're going to see a lot of donations come in to help people sponsor their family members.
It makes me feel extremely happy to see all the support that we've been receiving from you, from the community. They have been so warm and welcoming. It warms my heart, so thank you.
Now, while those people have arrived safely in Canada, many have had to leave friends and family behind in Afghanistan in unsafe and uncertain conditions.
During today's event in St. John's, one newcomer had questions for the Minister of Immigration, Jerry Byrne. This man spoke to the minister through an interpreter, and once again, CBC has decided to protect his identity.
Right now, some of our families are left behind in Afghanistan, and currently they are under threat in two aspects. And one of the threats to life that they face over there is dying of hunger because of the current situation there. And one of the concerns is that because, as you may know, that the Taliban are very violent, I'm afraid that they will take one of my family members instead of me. I'm very thankful to be here, but it is my request for our families to be helped and supported as well, for some cooperation on your side in order to bring our families here, in order for all of us to be safe.
Canada is cooperating with other NATO countries and with the United Nations to ensure that 40,000 Afghan refugees are brought to Canada and welcomed to Canada and become Canadian citizens and permanent residents. So this first group, like yourself, were those that were able to leave Afghanistan prior to the Taliban takeover. Canada has still committed to repatriating more Afghans who remain in Afghanistan, and family reunification will be very much a centerpiece of that.
Well, today started nice. We did see some sunshine. Temperatures are dropping and the winds are going to stay quite breezy. I'll have the full forecast when I come back.
right, before we get to our weather, Ashley, just some incredible flooding happening in BC's lower mainland.
Yeah, days of torrential rain has caused flooding and landslides, as well as the total evacuation of the town of Merritt.
Abbotsford and Chilliwack have declared a state of emergency and evacuation orders were put in place. Highways have been forced to close as well.
Yeah, thousands are without power. Hundreds are out of their homes. Some were even stuck in their cars and needed to be airlifted. But the good news is expected to ease up today. And the next step is to get highways reopened and assess just how much damage has been done. So the reason for all of that flooding is what we call an atmospheric river, and essentially it's a long, narrow column of moisture that flows through the upper atmosphere, and you can kind of see it here. This is the precipitable water. You can kind of see it there. So what happened is all of that moisture was towards the west coast, and you often hear me talk about that here too. We see it just from a different area. Normally it originates from Hawaii, hence why they call it the Pineapple Express, but for us we see it from the tropics, and in fact we are going to see something similar, not similar as far as the rainfall amounts, but that atmospheric river. We will see some of that as we head through the weekend as well. And even this last system, this area of low pressure, as you can see this front here, it's pulling moisture, if I zoom out a little bit, pulling moisture from the tropics. So a similar setup as we see that moisture in that atmospheric river kind of in play here in eastern areas of the province as well. And like I said, we're going to see that again, it looks like on Friday. So this area of low pressure, though, bringing some snow to parts of Labrador. Happy Valley Goose Bay has reported about 16 centimeters of snow as of 5 p.m. This is including what fell yesterday. Makovic, similar to that. Nain, you're looking at about 2 centimeters, but there's a good chance in the higher elevations closer to the Cartwright area that you've been seeing those much higher numbers as well. And those temperatures towards the coast, though, temperatures are only hovering around 1 or 2 degrees. So close to the coast, things are falling as rain, or at least mixing with some rain. And we're going to continue to see that as we head through the evening hours tonight. Otherwise, temperatures across the board for the island are in the single digits, between 5 to 7 degrees for most. So kept those winds in there because winds will be the story again tonight as far as the stronger winds go. Those gusts somewhere between 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. We're starting to see those wind shifts out of the west or southwest, but then that counterclockwise rotation, it's all onshore for parts of Labrador as well, coastal areas of Labrador anyway, looking at gusts between 70 to even 80 kilometers per hour. So blowing snow is certainly possible in those higher elevations because your temperatures are a little bit colder, but close to the surface, because the temperatures are much warmer, you're not seeing much in the way of blowing snow. But that will generally continue tonight. Along with the west coast, higher elevations, good chance of seeing some accumulating snow in the long-range mountains closer to the surface. That should fall as rain tonight. We could see upwards of 10, maybe even 20 millimeters of rain. But in the higher elevations, we could be seeing 10 plus centimeters by the time we get into Wednesday morning for the west coast, and then again continuing in the higher elevations for coastal Labrador. Temperatures tonight will sit in and around 1, 2, 3 degrees. Again, those winds out of the west or southwest, breezy right across the board, 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. Temperatures much colder than that for Labrador, -3, and Happy Valley Goose Bay, -7 in Lab City tonight. The winds will be the strongest along the coast, gusting out of the north about 70 to 80 kilometers per hour. And then as we head through the day tomorrow, things are going to stay unsettled through the afternoon. We're looking at the chance of some showers or flurries through most of the afternoon. In fact, some areas could see a couple of centimeters fall. It'll be a wet snow, and then it's going to stay windy as well, between 40 to 60 kilometer per hour winds. Conditions really improving up across Labrador. You're going to hang on to the chance of flurries at least, but the conditions will certainly improve for coastal areas through the day as well. And as we get into the evening hours, that better chance of flurries will move in, and that's just because temperatures are going to be much colder tomorrow right across the board. So we are looking at those temperatures tomorrow in and around 3 to 5 degrees, even 6 degrees in some areas, but the winds will shift. So we're looking at those southwesterlies turning to northwesterlies, hence that cool down, somewhere between 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. Again, some sunshine though in play as well. We'll definitely see some of that. And then as far as Labrador goes, chance of the flurries will continue, certainly along the coast, 1-2 degrees, a little cooler as you get to the north. Lab City should sit around -6, but again with some cloudy periods as well through the afternoon. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. The temperatures are going to warm up though as we get towards the weekend. I'll get into some of those details when I come back.
And now to a CBC investigative story from our colleagues in Prince Edward Island. But first, a warning. This story deals with sexual assault and may be triggering or disturbing for some. A Charlottetown woman expected police to investigate or at least contact several women who believed they were drugged. Kinley Dowling, who you may recognize from the band Hey Rosetta, brought the complaints to police in June. 17 stories of spiked drinks, blackouts, and in some cases, sexual assault. Most happened between 2010 and 2011, and many among the same wide net of friends and acquaintances. All of this in Charlottetown's downtown. The CBC's Kate McKenna reports.
Parties were often big and wild in Charlottetown a decade ago. There was a vibrant music scene and lots of alcohol. But for a handful of women, their memories of good times are shadowed by a haunting feeling, a chilling question. What happened? This woman says her life changed forever after a night downtown in 2011. She blacked out and woke up on a lawn. She believes someone drugged her.
When I got home, I took a bath and realized I had been assaulted because I was bleeding from certain parts of my body and really bruised and sore, and in different ways than it would be from just being drunk and stupid.
She didn't go to police at the time. She'd had multiple drinks that night and didn't think she would be believed, but she still thinks about it frequently. It's a story with similarities to 16 others. Local musician Kinley Dowling gathered them and took them to Charlottetown police earlier this year. Dowling thought there would be strength in numbers and believes the cases could be linked, but she left the police station dejected.
I always try to be hopeful, but it was a pretty discouraging day for sure.
11 of the 17 stories she received were from 2010 and 2011 at many of the same locations downtown, but only one person reported to police at the time. 7 of the complainants attached their names, expecting calls from police that never came. CBC News spoke with 13 of the 17 people who shared their stories with Dowling, including Van Toll. There is no concrete proof in any of the reports that connects any one person to the selling or administering of Rohypnol. In an interview in September, police couldn't say why they didn't call the women willing to share their stories. Instead, that they didn't proceed because these investigations are difficult.
With the passage of time, that at best this would be extremely difficult to investigate and get a conviction.
Dowling doesn't think that's the right response.
I just hoped that something would come of it with their help.
Earlier this month, police issued a press release saying they were investigating 2 recent reports of druggings and warned women to watch their drinks. Dowling says she hasn't given up trying to help her community heal, even if police are unlikely to investigate the allegations. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Charlottetown.
I don't believe it was an accident.
The family of Shauna Halloran say she was ignored by police, a suspicious death without an answer. That story tomorrow on Here and Now.
When Premier Andrew Furey attended the COP26 summit in Glasgow, he went with a message. Newfoundland and Labrador offer some of the cleanest oil in the world. Now, as many countries try to transition off fossil fuels, this province may increase oil production if the Bay du Nord project goes ahead.
A new oil field has the ability to electrify the platforms, to do so in a greener way with a lower carbon footprint.
We asked renowned environmentalist David Suzuki to weigh in on this idea of clean oil.
Well, I just repeat what Greta said, blah, 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 blah. You see, that's not dealing with the fundamental issue. We are animals that require clean air, and we've already changed the air. What are we going to do about that? Are we going to keep making it worse? I'm really sorry. Oil was the economic salvation of Newfoundland. I remember the difficult times Newfoundland had in oil. Wow. You know, I'm really sorry, but the reality is that the size of the human population and demand for energy is so great now that we have changed the chemistry of the atmosphere. And that oil that has been so important to Newfoundlanders is now something that doesn't work. It's not the right thing for the carbon constrained world. And trying to sell it, we had the ethical oil. Well, the oil coming out of Alberta is much more ethically produced than the oil coming out of Saudi Arabia or Nigeria and all of these arguments, but it's still oil. And the reality is that oil has got to be left in the ground. I'm really sorry about that, but that's the reality. It's not me saying that. The scientists are telling us that. Do we take the science seriously or not? Obviously, we're not going to be able to stop everything overnight, right? Even if we were, by some miracle, able to stop all greenhouse gas emissions overnight, today, the warming is going to continue. We've already started the process. We've had 26 COP meetings, and we have never succeeded in bringing the emissions down or even capping it. They've continued to rise. After the COVID lockdown, our use of our emissions are climbing at a higher rate now than they were before the COVID lockdown. So none of these conferences have succeeded in even getting us started on making the transition. And your premier going there and arguing is simply carrying on with the tradition of the other 25 COP meetings, which is, well, it takes time and our oil is better than other people's oil. We just want to keep producing the oil. But according to what the scientists say, if we want to keep or restrict our temperature rise, 80 to 85% of all known reserves of Canada's fossil fuels have to be left in the ground. We cannot burn it up.
Then how do we go about making the transition if we can't take out any more oil? How do we, as you say, we can't turn the taps off overnight with oil production. So how do we make the transition? Well,
I mean, if we first declare that this is an utter emergency and we have to throw everything into it. That's what all I'm urging our government is treat it like it's an emergency. Well, this is the ultimate existential emergency, and our government still acts as if we can negotiate our way to a solution at the end, and we're not doing it. Declare it an emergency. Look, COVID was a crisis that is nothing compared to the crisis of climate change in the end. And look what we did. The government spent $300 billion for the COVID pandemic. Where the hell did that money come from? Nobody said we can't afford this. The money, we printed the money and spent it because we had to. And think of the enormous changes that Canadians went through in the way they lived during the COVID crisis. That's the kind of commitment to the emergency that we need. Canadians will change, but we need the leadership that says we've got no choice. We've got to get off fossil fuels. We've got to do everything we can and as quickly as we can. And money is not an issue. Money, you just print it out. We showed that with COVID. Money is not an impediment. So let's get on with doing it. Declare it an emergency.
If there is, this transition that needs to happen to get the world off of oil and to move towards low carbon energy sources, and if we do need to keep using oil during that transition, is it not better to use sources that have a lower carbon footprint?
Yeah, sure. If you want to use gas for coal burning plants, I suppose, far better for me, as far as I'm concerned, is let's start reducing our demand for energy right now. And I believe that in the long run, it is not buying electric vehicles to replace our combustion engine cars. It's using our own muscles more and taking public transit. And if there isn't public transit, get the hell public transit in. So stop the really high polluting ones. Yeah, okay, I guess the problem is when you make a transition from coal to natural gas, for example, then there's a lot of pressure to keep using natural gas rather than saying it's got to be shut off. We've got to say, look, we've got no choice. We've got to get off fossil fuels. We've got to reduce our emissions very, very quickly. Now, how do we do that? And then all kinds of new ideas are going to come in. Opportunities will spring up. If we're worried about the economy, the GDP will grow once we embrace the emergency as we have no choice.
Well, David Suzuki, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts on this.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a big challenge for Newfoundlanders, but I know you've got the expertise. Once you decide, we have no choice. All kinds of things are going to happen.
Well, the 61st season of David Suzuki's The Nature of Things has just launched, and you can watch it on CBC TV Fridays at 9:30 p.m. Newfoundland time, a half hour earlier most parts of Labrador, or you can stream it anytime on CBC Gem.
This season on Stuffed, we're trying something different. We're gonna go out and make a meal from food that we source from the environment around us.
Let's get stuffed!
The young Sri Lankan man who came to southern Labrador and found much more than he was expecting. Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
Well, to a story where sports and news mix, it's a shortage that is leading to canceled hockey games in arenas right across the country. And it's not players who are in short supply, it's the referees. Hockey Canada says referee registration is down by as much as 50% in some areas, and that has people talking about what can be done to reverse the trend. Alison Northcott has the story.
In hockey games like these, referees play a crucial role.
We have the same passion as the players.
Killian Martin has been a ref since he was 13, and he stuck with it through COVID lockdowns, cancellations, and restrictions, but many other referees didn't.
Going back to the ice, being yelled at by many people, the parents, the coaches, the players, for just a couple of bucks, many referees just, okay, no. They said, you know what, I'm going to stop here, it's not worth it.
So many have quit. Hockey Canada says some areas started the season with half as many refs as needed.
As the pandemic went on, people made changes to their lives. They moved, they changed jobs, they changed family situations. Players and coaches, they've returned with enthusiasm and intensity, and officials have just not returned at that same level.
It means the refs they do have to work more games. Other times there are fewer officials on the ice, and in some cases, games have been cancelled. Marc-André Raymond is a head referee in Quebec. His region is making a big recruitment push and changing game times.
We asked all the association to move the most possible games during the week, because the week is easier to find, everyone is available.
Some organizations are covering referees' training and recertification costs. Hockey Quebec says it's looking at an awareness campaign to stop referee abuse, all of it aimed at keeping new recruits and bringing experienced referees back. Killian Martin has no plans to quit and sees refereeing as a potential career.
I feel good on the ice, and I would not exchange that for anything in the world.
Hockey Canada just hopes next season things will improve. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
When preparing for a journey across a vast ocean, the list of challenges can be very long. But for one man planning to kite surf across the Atlantic Ocean, one worry tops it all.
I'm very much afraid of lost containers in the ocean, because if I hit the containers with my fiberglass boat, it will sink. Trash in the ocean, that's one of my biggest problems during this crossing.
The 38-year-old is on a 6,000-kilometer trip from Portugal to the Caribbean island of Martinique. His boat harnesses the power of wind, and he hopes to complete the route in 5 days. The 7-meter-long vessel can reach top speeds of 31 kilometers an hour. The skilled kite surfer is also on a mission to raise awareness about sustainability and protecting the world's oceans.
It's Aoife.
Farai.
And Columbus.
And we're three really good friends who really love to eat.
This season on Stuffed, we're trying something different. We're gonna go out and make a meal from food that we source from the environment around us.
Aoife is going cod digging.
Meanwhile, Columbus is gonna go into the woods to forage. And Farai over here is going to go pick some vegetables at the farm.
And at the end of it all, we're going to come together and make a meal out of it.
Let's get stuffed!
Interesting fact that a study showed, watching a David Attenborough documentary gives you the same psychological benefits as 15 minutes of meditation in terms of increased compassion and calmness.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's one of the reasons David Attenborough is my idol. I have lived downtown for a long time.
Yeah.
I sometimes come up here and forage and stuff, and over the years I just discovered all these little trails. So first I'm going to just deke into this little parking lot with you, and we're going to get some pineapple weed.
My word for this, where are we? I feel like we're in Narnia. 1 second we're in the park, and then, the trail, and then next thing you're in the parking lot.
Well, that's literally the whole point of this, is that people feel like you need to get so far out of the city to get into nature and find places where edible plants grow or things you can forage. We're here to get some pineapple weed. I hang out here a lot. This does not get a lot of use. This is a safe place that I would forage small amounts of things. So we're just going to take a couple of these because they're not very well grown here, but you will find other places in the city that they're much bigger. They can produce allergic reaction, so you're going to start with just eating one of these little guys.
Oh my word, I lost it. No,
No, you got it.
Shall we?
Yes. Yep. Tastes kind of like pineapple.
It does, actually.
This is definitely a really easy thing to start foraging with because it has a nice taste, and you can add some sweetness and sort of candy it and put it on cakes.
When I first heard you were foraging flowers, I thought flowers were for, like, I don't know, celebrations, Valentine's Day, funerals, how you say. But like, what do you do with the flowers? Are you cooking with them? Are you making meals with them? Is this like a side dish or is this your main course?
I would say my main use for a lot of flowers would be in syrups and vinegar, or sometimes petals in salads. They definitely do make things beautiful as well. You can do so many things. Roses, which we're going to forage today, are probably my favorite flower, both to use myself. I do rose everything: rose vinegar, rose sugar, rose syrup, and also Persian and Middle Eastern recipes are kind of my go-to for ways to use roses in savory dishes. I love to forage wild roses. I dressed to match them today. I love them more than just about anything else in the world. They pretty much,
memo.
Oh, they like epitomize just love and beauty to me. Basically we're picking the petals off. The big thing you want to do here, this is called the nail, the green back. You don't want to take the nail with you.
Why is that?
It will make the rose bitter. And our timing is perfect. It's best to forage roses in the morning because a lot of their flavor comes from volatile oils, and the sun can sort of cause those to, well, they're volatile.
Seep out or something like that. Yeah.
You lose them over the days.
Can I pull one out, or is that not ethical for foraging?
Well, I wouldn't want to do it because
out, yeah.
you can actually get tetanus from rose thorns. So just the fact that you want to be, like if we were foraging high rose bushes, I would wear long sleeves. I don't know anyone who's gotten an infection from rose thorns, but it's actually a really interesting piece of foraging safety that if you're foraging, you should have your tetanus shots up to date. So here we have crowberries. They have different names in different parts of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Are these edible, sorry?
Oh yeah, totally. Most Newfoundlanders really traditionally don't eat them, but my mom, who grew up in Labrador, ate them all the time. So when I went out to Mistaken Point, they do the guided tour with you. I picked some of these berries, and the guide was just like, "You eat them?" But they're delicious.
So how did you get into this?
My great-grandma was sort of someone who, I mean, this is like going way back because I'm not really that young myself, but when she was a younger woman, she lived in rural Newfoundland, sort of around the Beatty Verde area, and there wasn't really any medical care per se there at that time. So she would make poultices or charm warts with snails or all kinds of interesting stuff. But so my parents were both in school when I was a little girl, so she took care of me. So that would probably be where I started. And then like a hippie mom, and she grew a lot of our food and liked to go out berry picking. And I don't actually think there was a lot of stuff she foraged, but or that foraging was even a word people used then, but there were some things we would get. Growing up in rural Newfoundland like I did, you'd almost have a job not to be exposed to that if you were a kid who liked to go out in the woods.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Felicity, and showing me this new path of life.
This has been so much fun. I mean, there's so many things you can eat, but roses and crowberries are a really great, accessible, and easy way to start. There's so much to me the taste of Newfoundland at this time of year, and I really encourage everyone out there to find a good guidebook, find a safe, sustainable place to forage, and get out and get some food from the land.
Hey Jules, what you doing?
So I'm just making a vinaigrette for the salad. So I roasted a little bit of this fresh local garlic, and I added some olive oil, just adding a whole lemon. We have some smoked Newfoundland sea salt and a bunch of cracked black pepper.
I think something's burning.
Probably.
first fat cat or the black sheep. Very fortunate to still have this room.
There's a community in the Black Sheep.
I remember it vividly, actually, the first day I held sticks.
I want to capture the gigs, I want to capture the facial expressions.
You're creating the song that you want to hear.
That made me feel better listening to that, and maybe I could write my feelings out and see how I like that.
It's really all about the music.
Okay, so time for a look at the long-range forecast. Nationally, it's going to be chilly tomorrow, but you mentioned that there may be a warm-up coming a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to see those double-digit temperatures return for a good chunk of the island as we head through Friday. But a little bit of a break until we get there. Let's take a look at the future tracker. An area of high pressure is going to move in. That's going to calm things down for a little bit as we head through the day on Thursday. Even some sunshine. However, the next one right on the heels, especially up across Labrador. We're looking at that snow moving back in Thursday night. But the track of this low pressure system is much further north than this last one. So it's looking like the rain-snow mix or the rain-snow line will be a little bit further north as well. So anything south of that should fall as rain through the day on Friday, along with that southerly flow. And that southerly flow is what is going to bring those mild temperatures through the day on Friday. And then it'll quickly change though as we get into Saturday, unfortunately, and behind that cooler air moving in again Saturday afternoon for parts of the west coast, and eventually eastern areas of the island will see that temperature drop as well, but it looks like that won't happen until at least Sunday at this point. So temperatures for Thursday are going to be on the cool side again, 1 to 3 degrees for most of the island, but a mix of sun and cloud for the most part, maybe a few showers for the southwest, but otherwise not a whole lot happening. And then that snow for Lab City, -4 will be your afternoon high, and eventually you're going to see that snow move in as the day goes on Thursday for the rest of the big land. Friday, keeping all that snow in there for you, but see those temperatures climbing 5-6 degrees for southeastern Labrador, so you are going to see that transition through to rain, and then temperatures, again, 12-13 degrees. We could see a little bit warmer than that in some cases, but overall, what does fall will fall as rain for most of the island, even reaching those high single digits for the northern peninsula as well through the day on Friday. After that, though, as we get into Sunday, that sharp drop in temperatures hovering around 2 degrees at this point for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. So that potential for some flurries will move back in as well, and overnight lows in the minus single digits as well. And then for central Newfoundland, windy as well on Friday. That will be the case pretty much across the island. And then as we get into Saturday for western Newfoundland, you're looking at just some flurries possible, and then the rest of central Newfoundland should see some showers clearing out for Sunday. It looks like at this point temperatures about 1-2 degrees, but overnight lows are going to dip as well into the minus single digits. And then for eastern Labrador, after Friday, looking at a nice stretch of weather, albeit cold, -1 to -6 through the weekend. And then for western Labrador, you'll see the the flurries rather continue as we get into Sunday, hovering around the minus single digits as well, but overnight lows dipping quite cold into the minus double digits. So we've been seeing lots of rain in eastern areas, and I was actually noticing when I was walking the dog today how quickly the rivers are flowing. This is no different. Dark Hole River in Clarenville. Thank you to Denise for sharing that photo with us.
A lot of water.
A lot of water. If you have any photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to the snow, actually.
I was thinking that today too.
Yeah, mostly because of the dogs, because
it's
all
so
the
muddy.
mud, and one of my dogs, her paws are like little mops. So when we go up for a woods walk, it just like sucks up all the mud and all the dirt. So yeah, the snow will take care of that problem.
Yeah, until it melts.
You have Carolyn and Ashley to thank for the first snow that we get in substantial proportions.
We already saw that. That's a lot. It's nice that the rain comes back, though.
Yes. All right, well, that's it for us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.